Here's RNC Youth Advisory Council co-chair and author of the new book, One Generation Away, Brilyn Hollyhand, and George Washington University student and vice chair of the GW College Republicans, Kieran Laffey. Great to have you both back on. Brilyn, I want to start with you. So the Atlantic writing that Gen Z voters don't really know Donald Trump. They were too young to remember Trump when he was in office 4 years ago, and that some support for Trump, this is the group, your group, Gen Zers, this is the group that typically elects Democratic presidents. Joe Biden carried the demographic by 24 points in 2020, but according to several recent surveys, his support has plummeted. Polls covering those 6 battleground states now show that Gen Z supports Donald Trump in overwhelming numbers. Why do you think that is?
Well, Rob, you're absolutely right. My generation is waking up. My peers are turning to Trump in historic numbers. You know, these recent polls show my peers are deserting Biden. They're supporting Trump because they simply want to make this country great again. I know that article said that my peers don't necessarily remember a Trump presidency, but I've heard the opposite when I travel the country. And after we give these speeches on college campuses, I even have Democrats walk up to me, students on these campuses, and say, either I voted for Biden in 2020 or I saw my parents vote for Biden in 2020, and I can't make that mistake again because I see the position he's put our country in. They don't want to grow up in this America. They don't want to grow up in a Biden America. They want to grow up in a Trump America with a prosperous future, and that's what we're going to have in November. It's going to be historic if Trump wins the youth vote. It hasn't happened in decades for a Republican president.
It is interesting because they say that your age group doesn't remember the Trump presidency because you were 10, 11, 12 years old. And they're saying that like it's a bad thing. The Trump years we weren't at war, all right? There was no war in Ukraine. There was no war in Israel. The economy was great. Gas prices were low. Inflation was low. The border was secure. Kieran, so far, and we've still got more to go, but so far 600,000 people have voted uncommitted in the primaries instead of voting for Joe Biden. On Tuesday, we saw it again in Kentucky. 20% of Democrats voted uncommitted instead of checking the box for Joe Biden. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, well, look, I think President Biden's unfortunately for himself walking that kind of fine line of disaster. Just like you mentioned, we've seen the primary turn out kind of disastrous with these uncommitted votes. So you have one side with the radical youth left, who, in terms of foreign policy, are very disappointed in the president. They unfortunately, look, I go to school at GW. I was on a few weeks ago talking about it. I mean, the college protests, they're dissatisfied with his position in the Middle East. And then you look at the more common-sensible young voters who feel that President Biden has turned his back on Israel and in other ways in foreign policy. And you mentioned that young voters say they don't remember the Trump years. Well, look, they can still read about it. Just like you mentioned, the economy, you look at it today, inflation's up, groceries up 22%, gas is up, average 40%. I mean, young voters like me getting out of college are trying to buy homes, rent houses, both those numbers, I mean, it continue to rise. And I mean, people are worried about public safety. I live right outside of New York. No one wants to go back into our cities anymore. We have, I mean, radical district attorneys who don't enforce the law. And I mean, he's walking that fine line of disaster. And I think a rude awakening is going to happen here in November.
Yeah, really good points, Kieran. So, Brilyn, the Biden campaign, apparently looking for a new meme manager because they want to put cool stuff out on social media to reach young voters. And look, we all like memes, but Biden is definitely not cool. He's old. He's out of touch. Does this strategy work for him?
Oh, absolutely not. This is the same Biden campaign who last year sent out this long form directive saying TikTok is not allowed on any government devices. They banned it on all government devices. Yet a few months later, they saw their failing poll numbers with Gen Z and made a Biden campaign account on TikTok. They're desperate. We saw it again yesterday. He's canceling billions of dollars more of student loans. He's trying to buy my generation's vote. Joe Biden is desperate to win the youth vote. I mean, canceling debt only teaches us to be more irresponsible. That's not the lesson a commander-in-chief needs to be teaching my peers, my generation. So I think we're going to see through that. I think we're going to see that this is just him trying to bribe us, trying to stoop even lower. But clearly they're very desperate to get back on TikTok, hire a meme manager, and then try to pay us to vote for him.
By the way, a lot of the Trump memes, he just shares it out on his own. He doesn't need a meme manager.
Yeah,
that's just him on Truth Social doing it on his own. So, Kieran, here are the numbers. In the spring of 2020, Biden led Trump with Gen Z support 51% to 28%. Now, spring 2024, Biden leading 45 to 37%, and Trump is leading in the battleground states. I'm just wondering, and I know this is anecdotal, but when you talk about Trump and Biden with your friends, what are your friends saying?
Well, look, of course, they're saying it a lot. And I mean, I think we have to highlight the importance of the youth vote. Look, they make up a quarter of the electorate in the major swing and battleground states. Those numbers are even higher. And I think, like I mentioned, the kitchen table issues, the economy, things are costing more. And look, it's hard in a lot of ways for young voters like me to relate with an 82-year-old out of touch kind of guy. And I mean, like you mentioned, the meme manager thing. President Trump's a real guy. I mean, he's got that funny, easy to like personality in a lot of ways. And I think it resonates with young people, the realness of him. And I mean, there's no need for President Trump to go out of his way to start to hire people because he's a real guy. And I think young people can relate to him.
Brilyn, we're really tight on time, about 15 seconds. But I've got a 14-year-old nephew, and he thinks Trump's funny. Is there he watches Trump on social media? No, I'm serious. And he was, in diapers when Trump was elected. But he thinks Trump's funny now. Is there a cool factor to Trump that Biden just doesn't have with voters?
Oh, there absolutely is. I gave a 37-minute speech on a college campus a few weeks ago, this long thing about policies. The first question I was asked when we started Q&As was, how is Trump like in real life? What's his personality like? My generation's obsessed with him. They think he's so cool. He's down to earth. And that's what they're kind of going towards him. They see Biden's just kind of this senile old man stumbling up and down stairs. And Trump's got the kind of the hit factor to him. So it's helping him out.
No, I've met Trump. He's larger than life. Joe Biden on life support.
Exactly.
A tremendous contrast there.
Yes.
Brilyn Hollyhand, Kieran Laffey, great to have you both on. Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it.
Thanks for having us, Rob. Appreciate it.
All right. Lots more to go this morning here.